He wasn't trained to protect anymore, but when a retired canine froze on a morning walk, then sprinted toward the river like something was screaming inside the silence, Officer Ray Thompson knew. Something was buried, something old. And when the dog pulled a waterlogged suitcase from the current, what was inside would rip open the past, unravel a web of hidden evil, lead to a truth darker than anyone was ready for. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Like the video and tell us in the comments where in the world are you watching from? Now let's jump into the story. The river trail was quiet before sunrise, the kind of quiet that feels borrowed from another world. Officer Ray Thompson paced the dirt path with her retired partner Leo, a once prized German shepherd whose muzzle now carried small clouds of gray. The department said Leo had earned endless naps and gentle walks, yet his eyes still flicked left and right, cataloging every rustle as if the badge were stitched to his fur instead of his memory. Ray enjoyed these dawn walks for one selfish reason: they stripped the day of excuses. No ringing phones, no paperwork, no cold case folders waiting on her desk, just the steady tap of her boots, the breath of a river not yet awake, and the soft rhythm of Leo's paws. She often let her mind drift, but this morning she felt an odd pull in her gut, like a silent alarm she could not name. A finch burst from a reed bed and Leo froze. His ears shot forward, tail stiff as a measured line. Ray halted, surprised at the intensity in the old dog's stance. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, though she already knew he would not answer with a bark. Leo answered with movement. He bolted. One moment the leash rested loosely in her hand. The next, it snapped free as Leo launched down the slope toward the riverbank. Ray nearly slipped in the damp grass, heart leaping. She had not seen the shepherd run that fast in years. "Leo," she shouted, stumbling after him. Her breath came in sharp pulls. Each stride felt slow, impossibly slow. By the time she reached the embankment, Leo was chest-deep in black water, pushing against the current like a living engine. Fog hovered in low blankets, swallowing half his frame. Ray's lungs burned. Fear clawed at her throat. She saw nothing on the surface, no duck, no stick, nothing that should interest a tired dog. Yet he swam straight ahead, fixated on something. Beneath the mist, then she saw it. A rectangle, dark and heavy, drifted several feet ahead of him, bumping gently against branches floating downstream. A duffel bag, maybe. A suitcase, maybe. Whatever it was, Leo wanted it. He caught the handle in his jaws and tugged, paddling back. The bag fought him, waterlogged and stubborn. But he refused to let go. Ray splashed into the shallows, boots flooding with cold water. She grabbed the dripping case as Leo heaved it onto the mud. The smell hit her instantly, metallic, sweet, and wrong. Her stomach folded inward. Memories of recovery, dives, and moored corridors flashed behind her eyes. "God," she whispered, steadying her voice enough to reach for her radio. "Dispatch, Unit 3-1, she said, forcing calm. "I'm at Riverside Trail Marker 11. I have a possible evidence package. Request backup. Canine assist." "Copy 3-1, the dispatcher replied, tone shifting from routine to alert. "Nearest unit is 8 minutes out." Ray knelt beside Leo. Water dripped from his coat. His ribs rose and fell in heavy waves, but his gaze never left the case. Mud clung to the zipper. She told herself not to open it. Procedure said wait. Secure the perimeter. Let forensics handle first glance. But procedure had never smelled this. Smell. She slipped a gloved hand into her pocket, a habit from years in uniform, pulled the zipper an inch, maybe two. Cotton fabric lay inside, soaked and stained. A child's blanket, pastel blue, tiny rockets printed across the fuzz. Next to it, a single shoe, no larger than her palm, the kind with cartoon eyes sewn on the toe. Bile crept up her throat. She zipped the case shut. The morning's quiet shattered in her mind. Distant gulls cried overhead, but the river sounded louder now, as if it bragged about every secret it had hidden. Leo let out a low whine and pressed his head against her sleeve. She looked at him, tears threatening. "You remembered," she murmured. 8 years ago, a 6-year-old girl named Lainey Bishop vanished during a riverside cookout less than half a mile from this spot. No body, no sign, only a small pair of rocket print pajamas left on the beach. Leo was a young officer then, barking madly at the water while Ray dragged him away, convinced the current had claimed the child. Case closed as presumed drowning. Families moved on. But Leo? Leo had never let that memory drown. Sirens echoed in the distance, faint but growing. She stood, wiping her eyes on her sleeve. A protocol or not, she had work to do. Mark the scene. Protect the evidence. Keep watch. She looped Leo's leash over a branch to keep him close, yet free enough to move. He sat beside the case like a stone sentinel, breath steaming in the new sun. Ray scanned the trail. Footprints? None yet. The fog retreated with the first gold rays of light, revealing steps leading down from a rickety wooden overlook. Small. Stones shifted there, as if someone had hauled a heavy weight not long ago. The grass lay flat in a thin drag line toward the water. She snapped photos and felt the knot in her gut tighten. This wasn't an old secret floating free. Someone had placed that bag here recently. A cruiser rolled into view, tires crunching gravel. Officer Miguel Hardy stepped out, eyes widening at the scene. He moved to Ray's side, nodding at Leo with respect. The shepherd didn't glance up.
Lit.
He remained fixed on the case, a silent guard dog on the steps between river and land. Miguel exhaled. First light, and we're already in the dark. Ray nodded. But Leo just turned one light on for us. She placed a hand on the dog's wet fur and whispered, "Good boy, we listen now." As the forensic team unpacked their kits, Ray stepped back, boots squelching in the mud, and stared upriver. Dawn painted the water pink, soft and innocent, pretending nothing had happened. But Leo's growled earlier, the blanket, the shoe, they sang a different song. Damn. The river might still whisper, but today it had met a sentinel who refused to be ignored. The suitcase was gone by mid-morning, sealed in a plastic coffin and driven toward the state crime lab. Yet the smell of river rot stayed with Officer Ray Thompson long after the forensics van disappeared around the bend. She and Leo rode back to the station in silence. The shepherd's wet fur steamed against the car heater, filling the cruiser with a damp, earthy odor that somehow felt safer than the metallic sweetness clinging to Ray's clothes. At headquarters, the day cracked open. Like rotten wood. Detectives swarmed, phones rang, reporters hovered outside the glass doors. Someone leaked that a child-sized shoe had been found, and every parent in Columbia County wanted answers before lunch. Captain Wyatt tried to control the narrative, but the story sprinted ahead of him. It was easier to calm a flood than a rumor. Ray ducked into the evidence bay, where the blanket and shoe were being photographed. The blue rockets on the fabric had faded, but she could still see the pattern if she squinted. Tiny boosters pointed to a sky no child got to reach. She thought of Lainey Bishop's mother clutching those pajamas during the search 8 years ago, begging God to send her daughter home. Ray had no prayer strong enough to cover that kind of loss. "Thompson," Wyatt called from the doorway, beard bristling with frustration. "Press briefing in 1 hour. You Hardy, and the dog will stand behind me." No comments, no theories. Just presence. Ray nodded, but didn't move. Presence felt useless when the past walked beside her like a second shadow. After the briefing, Ray drove home to change. Leo followed her into the narrow backyard, ears swiveling as though the tall cedar fence hid an invisible crowd. The fence had been a comfort once, a wooden boundary between duty and rest. Today it looked like a stage curtain, and Ray suddenly wondered who might be standing on the other side. She set a kettle on the stove and slipped into dry jeans. From the kitchen window she saw Leo pacing along the back fence line, nose low, tail stiff. His shoulders rippled beneath the damp fur. Something was there. Ray stepped onto the porch. "What is it, boy?" Leo paused, sniffed, then barked a deep warning bark that rattled the quiet street. The kettle began to hiss behind her, but Ray ignored it. She scanned the tops of the fence boards. Nothing. No movement. No rustle. Still, Leo's hackle stayed high. She hopped off the porch and walked the perimeter. Neighbors' yards backed onto hers. Polite gardens, faded swing sets, a compost bin or two. No one home at this hour. She cupped her hands and called, "Anyone back there?" Silence answered. Yet when she turned to head inside, a flash of silver caught her eye near the fence post. A strip of mylar, maybe candy wrapper, wedged between slats. She tugged it free. It was no wrapper. It was a photo, bent and damp, printed on cheap paper. The picture showed a little girl on a playground slide, hair in twin braids, a pink jacket zipped to her chin. Her face was half smile, half surprise, like someone had called her name just before the shutter. Ray's stomach flipped. She'd never seen this child, but the date stamped in red at the corner, 0714. Now just 3 weeks away, her blood ice cold. A future date on an old printer? Either a glitch or a threat. Leo barked again, louder, deeper, stared at a knot in the fence, as if it were an open door. Ow. Ray crouched beside him, photo trembling in her grip. The knot was eye level for a crouched. Adult perfect peephole height. Someone had been watching her yard. She hurried inside, locked every bolt, and called Hardy. "Bring evidence kits to my house," she said, "and be quick." Detective Hardy arrived with gloves, swabs, and a portable UV light. He examined the knot hole, dusted the fence boards, and lifted 2 partial prints. Could be teens messing. "A round," he offered, though his voice lacked conviction. Ray handed him the photo without a word. Hardy swallowed hard. "Timestamp set in the future," he muttered. "That's deliberate." The detective shined his UV across the wooden slats. Faint streaks glowed blue skin oil where fingers had lingered. Whoever stood here had been patient, calm, unhurried. Leo sniffed the boards, snorted, then sat, giving his low woof of confirmation. Same scent as the river trail, Ray thought. The same invisible hand. Hardy bagged the photo and prints. Lol. "Run them tonight. Meanwhile, stay alert." Ray almost laughed. Alert was all she had left. After Hardy left, she turned off the untouched kettle, fed Leo, and sat at the kitchen table with her service pistol beside the salt shaker. Outside, dusk melted the sky into bruised purple. Streetlights flickered on in sequence, soft pops of amber. She listened to Leo's claws click on the hardwood as he patrolled each room. At 9 p.m. her phone buzzed. A text from Hardy. "Prints partial but unique loop pattern. No match in system. We'll keep digging. Watch your 6." Ray set the phone down. Her gaze drifted to the backyard, now a rectangle of darkness framed by the porch light.
Oh.
She imagined. Shapes behind the cedar boards, someone tall, breathing steady, camera lens pressed to the knot. The idea of unknown eyes cataloging her life made her skin crawl, but it also sparked something fierce. She pulled a folding chair to the porch and sat, Leo at her heel. She let the night surround them, refused to retreat. If the shadow wanted a stage, she would stand at the edge of the spotlight and stare back. Minutes stretched. A lone cricket sang. Wind rattled leaves. Then, faint but unmistakable, a twig snapped beyond the fence. Leo rose, teeth bared in a silent snarl. Ray leveled her flashlight and voice. "Columbia County Police, show yourself." No answer. Another. Snap, farther off. Then the hush of hurried footsteps retreating through brush. Ray's pulse hammered. She held Leo's collar, ready to release him, but the sounds faded into distant rustles and finally died. Whoever had watched from the fence had fled? Ray exhaled, knees weak. She knelt, wrapped her arms around Leo's broad neck, and whispered, "Good eyes, partner. Good ears." That shepherd licked her chin once, then sat, ever vigilant. Under the porch light, Ray noticed a second scrap of paper near the gate. She picked it up with shaking fingers. Black marker scrawled 2 words across the torn edge. Still looking. Her breath caught equal parts terror and resolve. Someone taunted her, confident, playful. But they'd misjudged the dark. They thought shadows were safe behind wooden slats. They forgot about the eyes that glow amber in a moonless yard, the sentinel who never clocks out. Ray rose, photo in one pocket, scrap in the other. She looked to the fence, to the night, to the river beyond town. "So am I," she whispered. And Leo, always listening, answered with a low growl that promised the hunt had only begun. The dawn after the fence incident arrived, pale and restless, painting the precinct windows with weak stripes of light. Officer Ray Thompson slipped through the main doors before most desks were occupied, a thermal mug rattling in one hand, and Leo's leash wrapped tightly in the other. The shepherd walked at heel, but his nose hovered a half-inch above the floor tiles, drawing invisible lines through the air as if the building itself carried clues. Ray trusted that knows more than half the software in the evidence lab. She headed straight for records, bypassing greetings and raised brows. Hardy was already waiting, hunched over a computer screen. He looked up, dark rings under his eyes. "You didn't sleep," he said. "Neither did you," she replied, and set the mug beside him. "Tell me you found something," Hardy clicked. "A photo into view. The partial print from your fence. It matches a touch left on a park bench to Summers. A Go case file 0936. A missing kid named Heather Plain." He tapped the screen where the fingerprint pattern glowed. No suspect back then, but the print was the only thing that never got a match. Until now. Ray felt her stomach hollow. Same loop ridge, same scar slice. So the man who watched my yard was at Heather's disappearance. And probably Madison's, Julian's, all of them, Hardy added. He slid another folder across the desk. Property records on John Marshall's nephew, Curtis Hyde, the guy Leo he owns. An abandoned cannery to miles upriver from the church. Bought it cash last year. Ray's pulse quickened. Canneries got cold storage rooms. Easy to hide a kid. Or whatever he wanted. Nodded bleakly. Judge signed a search warrant at 6 a.m. SWAT's on standby. "You ready?" Glanced at Leo. The dog's tail flicked one subtle confirmation. "He's ready." "I'm angry." "That's close enough." The convoy rolled out before sunrise, to SWAT vans, an evidence truck, Hardy's sedan, and Ray's cruiser bringing up the rear. Mist curled off the Columbia like breath from a sleeping animal. Every mile of highway felt like a heartbeat. The cannery sagged on a strip of cracked asphalt, river water licking its rusted pilings. Faded letters on corrugated sidings spelled Faro Seafood Co. Ray parked beyond the perimeter tape and stepped out. The air smelled of river mud, iron, and something sweeter, rotting fruit. No chemicals. Leo's ears spiked forward. SWAT breached through a side door in controlled bursts. Ray waited on the threshold, leash slack, until the all-clear signal waved. Then she and Leo slipped inside. Dark corridors swallowed their footsteps. Overhead fans, long dead, waited like cobweb wheels. Hardy joined them, flashlight sweeping. "We'll clear left. You and Leo take right." Ray clicked her tongue. Moved ahead, nose working overtime. In the hush, the soft sniffs sounded like tiny engine sputters, each one pulling scent molecules from the stale air. Suddenly he stopped at a rust-flecked sliding door. He pawed once, looked back. "Freezer," Ray muttered. "Old latch. Manual lock." She tugged, stubborn. Hardy jogged over, helped force it. The seal broke with a hiss of chilled air. An old commercial freezer, power long cut. But colder than the rest of the cannery, thick walls kept night temperatures trapped. Leo stepped. Inside first, circled, then sat abruptly beside a stack of plastic bins. His low growl rolled through the metal chamber. Ray knelt, heart racing. The top bin was taped shut. She peeled back layers, each rip of duct tape echoing like gunshots. Inside lay children's items, a plush rabbit, damp with mildew, a pink sandal, a school ID badge smeared by moisture. Heather Plain, age 4, Hardy exhaled a curse. Ray's vision blurred, but she pressed on, lifting another bin lid. More relics, hair ribbons, a toy truck. A small spiral notebook filled with shaky crayon drawings, each page dated. "Souvenirs," Hardy whispered. He kept trophies. Kept timelines, Ray corrected, pointing at the dates, each aligning with a known disappearance. "This notebook ends last month." She flipped to the final page. A single line read, "Next one, LM July Fair." Another target, Hardy. Breathed, initials L. He scanned the list on his phone. Missing persons reported Lydia Mason, 5 years old, wandered off during the same fair 2 weeks back. She was found safe after 30 minutes. Maybe they tried and failed? Ray's jaw clenched. They're not finished. SWAT officer radioed. We've got a hidden stairwell, southeast corner. Heavy ammonia smell. Ray and Hardy exchanged a look. She toggled Leo back to heel and followed the officer. The stairwell descended beneath the cannery, concrete steps slick with algae. Ammonia stung Ray's throat. At the bottom, a door stood ajar. Inside, fluorescent lights flickered over a tight corridor of storage cages. Some were empty. Others held mattresses, pillows, bolts of cloth as makeshift curtains. Leo's hackles rose, tail straight as a blade. He sniffed the first cage, then moved on. Second cage, then third. He stopped at the fourth, nose pressed to the metal grate. A soft whine escaped emergent, almost pleading. Ray peered between the bars. A tiny figure huddled under a blanket, trembling. Police, Ray said, voice cracking. You're safe now. Girl's eyes wide, brown, terrified, met hers. My name is Lydia, she whispered. He said I had to wait. Hardy radioed for medics while SWAT cut the lock. Leo sat, tail sweeping the dirty floor in a slow, soothing rhythm. Lydia crawled out and pressed her small hands into the shepherd's fur, like she'd found the only real thing left in the world. Ray guided her up the stairs into daylight, where paramedics wrapped her in blankets. Cameras clicked. Porters shouted. Lydia clung to Leo's ruff while Ray spoke softly to detectives. Back in the cannery, officers found Curtis Hyde unconscious in a supply closet, needle and arm self-inflicted overdose. John Marshall's fingerprints coated every bin in the freezer. Evidence mounted like storm clouds. Night fell again. But this time Ray sat on her porch with Leo and felt the earth a little steadier beneath her boots. Lydia was safe in the hospital, singing to the nurses while eating orange sherbet. The river drifted under the moon, no longer hiding what men had forced upon it. Leo rested his head on Ray's knee. The scent trail was almost over, but she knew. He would keep searching in dreams, nose twitching, paws running. She stroked his ears. You found her, she murmured. Ow. You found them all. Beyond the fence, crickets chirped. No shadow watched tonight. The hunter had become the hunted, and the sentinel's nose had never once lost the way. The sun had barely crested the eastern hills when Ray Thompson stirred on the edge of her couch. A worn blanket tangled at her feet, and the soft click of Leo's claws tapping across hardwood, waking her from a restless doze. For the first time in weeks, there was no case file in her lap, no red string across her wall, no late-night calls or sudden knocks. But her heart hadn't caught up yet. Leo nudged her arm gently with his nose, and she rubbed between his ears. We're not done, are we? She whispered, though the room was quiet. And the only sound beyond Leo's breath was the birds greeting the day. Just 2 days had passed since Lydia Mason had been rescued from that cold basement under the cannery. She was back home now, sleeping safely beside her mother's bed. Her name no longer a headline, but a promise fulfilled. The townsfolk had started calling Leo a miracle dog, a legend, a silent guardian. But to Ray, he was still the same loyal partner who never needed words to understand what mattered most. She stood slowly, joints stiff from the couch, and moved to the back window. The river lay beyond the fields, a silver ribbon under dawn's glow. It looked harmless now, almost peaceful. But Ray knew better. Beneath its calm surface lived the secrets of too many years' names written in notebooks, initials scrawled in ink, lives stolen in silence. And it wasn't over. A knock came at the door, soft but urgent. She opened it to find Detective Hardy, coffee in one hand, a brown folder in the other. Morning, he said, voice tired. You're going to want to see this. He sat at the kitchen table, Leo curled between their chairs like a shadow with ears. Hardy opened the folder and pulled out a printout. We ran those fingerprints from the cannery again, just in case, he explained. This one, he tapped the top sheet, belongs to a retired maintenance worker named Reuben Caldwell. 67, used to volunteer at Rivers of Mercy. No priors, but get this. He's got a listed property out past Maple Hollow. It used to be a hunting lodge. Guess who signed a work order for plumbing repairs there 6 months ago? Ray leaned forward, Curtis Hyde. Hardy nodded grimly. Yep, same pen. Same signature style. The more we dig, the more these names start to connect. Caldwell, Marshall, Hyde. They were a network. A chain of silence wrapped around this town. Ray's jaw clenched. You think they're covering for someone else? Maybe. Or maybe they all played parts. Maybe each man held a piece of the horror so no one had to carry the whole weight. She looked down at Leo. He had begun to sniff at the folder, his tail twitching once like a flag of instinct. You want to check out Maple Hollow? She asked. Quietly, Leo stood without waiting. The old hunting lodge stood behind a tangle of thorny brush. It's barely visible from the main road. Moss grew thick along the shingles, and rust carved streaks down the old water pump. The front porch sagged like a tired mouth. Ray and Hardy stepped out of the cruiser, weapons holstered but eyes sharp. Leo moved ahead, slow but steady, nose pulling him toward the side of the house. You smell it? Ray whispered. He paused near a boarded-up window and let out a low huff. Basement, Hardy said, reading the air. They found the entrance around the back, buried under a layer of leaves and pine needles. Leo scratched at the dirt until the edge of a hatch was visible. Ray gripped the rusted handle and pulled hard, creaked open with a moan of old hinges and the scent of mildew and soil. They descended together, flashlights leading the way. This wasn't like the cannery. This place was smaller, closer. Boxes lined the walls. Inside were notebooks, more of them. Dates, places, initials. But this time, there was something else. A crib. It sat in the far corner, dusty and chipped but intact. A blanket lay inside it, pale yellow, hand-stitched with stars. Ray's hand trembled as she reached for it. There's no one here now, Adi said behind her, voice hushed. But someone used this place. Recently, they opened more boxes, children's books, dolls, photographs, faces of children no longer missing, faces they could name. But there were others too, photos of unknown kids. Faces Ray had never seen. Initials that didn't match any case files. How many more? She whispered, barely able to breathe. Hardy didn't answer. He didn't have to. Leo moved to the crib and sat down. He didn't bark. He didn't whine. He just kept his eyes on the blanket like it held every story no one else wanted to tell. Back at the station, Ray sat in the evidence room one last time. The crib had been taken in. Forensics worked the rest. The wall behind her was filled now. Maps, names, timelines. All connected. They'd built a trail out of the silence, and it led here to a town that forgot. Too much to men who hid in plain sight to a dog who refused to stop remembering. The department gave Leo a medal. Townspeople sent cards and toys, but he didn't care about any of it. He still slept beside Ray's desk, ears twitching every time a child laughed outside or a phone rang with news. You still listening? She'd whisper to him at night. Still watching? And Leo, true to his name, always lifted his head. When the door opened, always moved first when the story wasn't over. One morning, weeks later, as sunlight poured through the window and lit the edge of his old crate, Leo stepped in front of a crying mother at the station, nose pressed to her. The mother stopped. Bent down. He smells her, she said softly. My daughter, he knows. Ray stood slowly. The trail wasn't cold. Not yet. Leo had found another name, and the hunt had just begun again.